So we're going to leave the story of Yaakov and Esav and move further to now Yaakov is departing and going to Haran. It's on page 34 in Sefer Ha-Aggadah. Because we'll see every time we visit like one of the stories in Bereshit, we see a reflection of what happened with Haran is in Turkey. Yeah, Haran is in today's in Turkey. So he travels from Eretz Israel to Haran, and here we have the interesting midrash that says, "Vayelech Harana." כשהגיע יעקב לחרן, אמר, אפשר עברתי על מקום שהתפללו שם אבותיי ואני לא התפללתי? כשנתן דעתו לחזור, קפצה לו הארץ. מיד, ויפגע במקום. So, according to this, this is a midrash that dwells on the literal meaning of the pasuk. The pasuk says, "Vayetze Yaakov מבאר שבע, וילך חרנה." Yaakov left Be'er Sheva and went to Haran.
Rabbi, Haran is Turkey.
Haran is Turkey.
How is it?
No, you walk. That's it. You walk. 2 days. That's exactly the problem with it. It is doable. It is doable. People use it. It was a route.
Talking about at least
Days, weeks. Yes.
1,000 miles.
Yes. It was a route that people would take. Haran. Some people say Haran is Aram Naharaim, is in Iraq. But I mean, when you ask people who grew up in the area, I remember like sitting one time with two of my congregants. One of them was born in Aleppo, and one of them was born in Urfa. Urfa is in Turkey, or closer to the border.
Yeah.
And they were arguing whether Avraham Avinu and Haran and Aram Naharaim, was he born in Aleppo or in Urfa? So of course, if you were from Aleppo, you say he was from there. And if you're from Urfa, you say it was from there. But
Avraham Avinu spoke Ladino.
Avraham Avinu, yes. According to the famous song, he spoke Ladino. He spoke one dialect of ancient Hebrew, and probably also knew some of the languages of the area, Aramaic or Akkadian. We don't know exactly. In any case, the journey is doable. It's feasible. People did it all the time with by foot, by camels, by horses. Camels not in the time of Yaakov. There were no camels there.
Where did the camel come from to that area?
From Asia. It's called the inner Asian plains, like Mongolia, that area. The Bactrian. No, there are two types of camels. Anyway, so but the main thing is people did travel that, just as people traveled the spice road to India and the Silk Road to the Far East. Travelers at the time, today we complain when, you have to take a flight that's more than 7-8 hours. And so it's tedious, it's difficult, People, 7 hours for them was to get from what we cover in 30 minutes or an hour by car or plane. So, we're spoiled, yeah. Anyway, but your question is important because it sheds light on the problem of the Midrash. According to this Midrash, Yaakov leaves Be'er Sheva and gets to Haran on the same day. And the pasuk says, "Vayifga b'makom vayal sham ki ba shemesh." He got to a certain place and he slept there because the sun was setting, and then when he woke up in the morning, he had the dream, and he woke up in the morning, he says, "En zekim bet Elohim ze v'ze sha'ar hashamayim." This is the house of God. This is the gate of heaven, and he called it Bet El. Ve'ulam Luz Shem Ha'ir L'Rishona, but originally the city was called Luz. So there's a problem with the geography of Eretz Israel trying to identify the Bet El exactly. If you go today, if you look at the map of Israel today, Bet El is near Hebron or near Yerushalayim, what we call the
new settlement Bet El.
New settlement, yeah, Bet El. It corresponds to the city of Bet El. It does. But there was another city called Bet El in Israel, and it is where this Luz, the city of Luz means almond in biblical Hebrew. So this city was more towards the north. But in any case, if he goes from Beersheba, which is in the south, and he wants to travel towards Turkey, that area, he has to go through the center in Israel, then the north, and definitely then get there. So according to Midrash, he already made this journey in one day, and then said, "Oh, but I didn't pray at the place where my forefathers prayed. How could I do such a thing?" And then God made a miracle, v'kafza lo haaretz, and sort of like in Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty. This kind of thing that you're transported from one place to another place. So he's here. He says, "I want to be in Bethel," and he reappears in Bethel. So this is definitely not something that's written in the Torah. The whole idea of kfitzat derech. Later on, there are many stories from the medieval times, and later on from the time of the Kabbalah, of the Hari, of people, of righteous people who traveled miraculously, meaning that they covered distances that take weeks in an hour or in a day, and some people believe in it. Others, like Rav Hai Gaon, who was the head of the yeshiva of Bavel in the 10th century, people asked him, they said, "We heard that a certain rabbi traveled from Italy to Iraq by these miraculous methods, by using the holy names of God. Is this possible?" And he answered, "It's impossible. This is not something that works by nature, and if people had this kind of power, they wouldn't be humans. That we're talking about something that belongs in the divine reality." So it was very, very clear on that. So this, we have to take it as a metaphor or as a symbol, not literally that Yaakov went back. The problem doesn't exist with the pasuk to begin with, because it was on his path. When the Torah says he left Beersheba and went to Haran, it didn't mean that he got to Haran, but rather that he was on his way, and then he gets to this place. But the idea that the Torah wanted to convey is that there is a continuity. Ramban calls it Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim. The actions of the fathers are a sign or a signal for the children. And it could be both positive and negative. Meaning that if the parents raise their children and they're not good role models, the way they behave, the way they talk, so this is the kids are bound to repeat that, and vice versa. So Yaakov now, especially after he took the baracha from Esav, maybe felt that he deceived Yitzhak, wants to correct that by going back to the place where Abraham prayed. This is where my forefather Abraham prayed and connected to God. This is what I want to do as well. So he goes back to the place. And then the Torah says, "Vayikach me'avnei hamakom, vayasem me'ra'ashotav." So he took some of the stones and he put it under his head. Me'ra'ashotav, and from the word rosh. So he put some stones under his head. Then in the morning it says, "Vayikach et ha'even asher sam me'ra'ashotav, vayikimei hamatzeva." He took the stone, one stone, which he put under his head, and he made a monument from it. This was the custom at the time of the Tanakh, something called matzeva. It comes from the word nitzav, which means stands up. So people would just take a rock, and on the rock they would pour some oil, and that would be like a mizbeach, like an altar. We made a sacrifice to God. This is how they looked at it. The rabbis looked at the pasuk and they said, "We have a problem." It says that he took stones and he put under his head, and then it says he took the stone which was under his head. So there's a very interesting midrash here that Rashi quotes, so everybody knows it from kindergarten. "Asa'an kemin marzev v'natan tachat rosho shaya mityareh min ha'chayot." He made like a T or like a fence behind his head, so the animals won't come in. Talking about crawling creatures or anything like that. And then the stones started fighting each one of them says, I want the righteous, "Alay yaniyah tzaddik et rosho." I should be the pillow for this righteous man. So eventually the solution was that they all became one stone. So this is the kind of things that not written in the Torah. It's a miracle that it's against nature. For this to happen, you have to have something like 2,000 Fahrenheit to melt the stones and reshape them. And of course, anything in the area would burn because of that. So again, here we have a case where the Midrash goes to an extreme based on the little problem of the pasuk, which is not really a problem. When the Torah says he took off the stones and he put under his head, it means he lined up several stones, but he only put his head on one of them, which was bigger than the others, and this is the one that he took in the morning. And but this is the nature of the Midrash. In order to embellish the story, it makes inanimate object animate. So even the stones are fighting over that. Where will Avraham, where will Yaakov put his head? So there's an interesting story related to that about the Natziv Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin of Volozhin, famous Rosh Yeshiva in the Ashkenazi world. So the Natziv of Volozhin had his youngest son, Meir Bar-Ilan, established Bar-Ilan University. His oldest son established the Haim Berlin institution. So he has the oldest and youngest children went two different ways. One of them became like the leader of the ultra-Orthodox or the Orthodox world, and one of them became the modern Orthodox Zionist academic, Meir Bar-Ilan. That's his youngest son. So one time he had one of his supporters of his yeshiva come into his office, and the man sat and spoke to the rabbi, and he was a very, very heavy set man, and he was sitting on a wicker chair, meaning woven bamboo, right? And the chair couldn't support him, and he fell. So he felt very embarrassed. So the rabbi came over and helped him sit down, and he wants to calm him. And he said, you are like Yaakov Avinu. You're a righteous person. He said, what do you mean? He said, you know how the stones were fighting? Each stone said, let the tzaddik, the righteous man, put his head on me, so they all became one big stone. He said, yes. It's the same thing when you sat on the chair. Each hole said, I want him to sit on me, so they became one big hole. I don't know if I was happy with the pun, but end of the story, right. So then Yaakov has the dream. Here the angels of God are going up and down the ladder. So I mentioned yesterday already the term malach in Hebrew in the Torah does not mean angel. We translate it as angel, but it really means messenger. So the messengers of God, and the messengers of God the messenger could be anyone, could be natural forces, could be other humans, could be anything, any force or action that happens in the world could be interpreted as a message from God. So what Yaakov sees, he sees those malachim, those angels or messengers going up and down the ladder. We could interpret it as Yaakov now reflects on his actions and thinks of who's on top, who's going to be the leader. It's him or Esav. Where is Yitzhak? Where is Rivka in this whole picture? And then he sees God. V'nei Adonai nitzav alav. And then he sees in this vision he sees God. We don't know if he sees him as a vision in the dream or he's awake. But then he says, I know that God exists in this place as well, which is a very strange statement for Yaakov to make, because we're thinking about one of the forefathers, and it's apparently they knew that God is everywhere. So why would he say, right? Yesh Elohim b'makom hazeh, v'anochi lo yadati en ze kimet Elohim v'zeh sha'ar hashamayim. Says, I didn't know that this happens here. So first look at the Midrash. The Midrash says, Sarei arba malchuyot olim ve'yordim. He saw ministers or the those who are in charge, or the four kingdoms, go up and down. The four kingdoms is the way that Hachamim refer to the four oppressors of Am Yisrael. Is, even though one of them was not an oppressor, Babylonia, Bavel, Paras, Yavan, Veromi. So the Babylonians, they were oppressors. They destroyed the Beit HaMikdash and sent people in exile. The Persian Empire was actually a benefactor of Am Yisrael, because they let us come back and rebuild the temple. But the rabbis put them in this category of the four kingdoms because they felt that there was a cultural threat from the Persian Empire of people assimilating into their culture. The Greeks were in between. They started as a sort of a friendly conquest, took over Israel. It was not like a bloody war, but then they tried to impose their religion or their paganism on the Jews, and we know the Maccabim followed suit and all that. And then the Roman Empire, which is really an oppressor. So the rabbis look at the time of Yaakov, all these things didn't exist. They project their time on it to say he sees the way the kingdoms rise and fall. Bavel, Paras, Yavan, and Rome. So, and this is an interesting point in the Midrash, to say that when we look at it, 2,000 years after the Midrash was written, it's an interesting, beautiful observation that the rabbis made. All these empires rise and fall, but Yaakov remains there. When they made this observation, we were down. We were lying down, not as someone who was asleep, but as someone who fainted, who lost consciousness, because we were smitten by the Romans. Yet the rabbi said, those angels are like the kingdoms of the world. They will go up and down, but we have sort of this promise from Hashem, and this is what really happened. All these empires don't exist today. Each one of them was very powerful at the time, and they all disappeared. And there's a famous statement that Mark Twain made, really speaking about that, how all the empires rise to the front, to the forefront of history with great noise and clamor and all that, but then they disappear, and only the Jewish people remains there, one empire after another. And he was not a great friend of Am Yisrael. He made some seriously anti-Semitic remarks, but he had to acknowledge that this is what happens. Baruch Adonai.